I didn't actually get over my hair loss. I actually learned to live with it, adjust to it, make the decisions needed to not be living disempowered by it, but I didn't get over it. I wanted to talk about owning your hair loss so that it doesn't own you. We definitively have a diagnosis like female pattern baldness, which is a progressive disorder. It's better sooner than later that we learn to adjust to what we are now be dealing with going forward and making choices that can feel empowering within this process instead of debilitating. And that can look a number of different ways for different people. But I do things, even on a continual basis, that I will share that I need to still do present day. If I find myself slipping in one little direction, and I do find that sometimes with my shaved head, which is fairly new, because I want to not be uncomfortable in my skin at any state, meaning I choose to live wigged, unwigged, in both ways. That helps me to live free of hair loss. And today I was going to go to the grocery store, and a lot of times I wear a beanie because my head is cold. It's just having a shaved head, your head gets cold. That's just a fact. So if I don't really feel like wearing a wig, I'll wear a beanie. And sometimes, honestly, the beanie's not comfortable. The wig's not that comfortable at times, and so you're just like, okay, I'll have a cold head. But today, I was going to go to the grocery store this morning, and I found myself potentially making the decision to wear the beanie, not due to the cold head, but because I didn't want to go out maybe with my shaved head. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that if that's what you choose to do. But for me, I want to feel total freedom in being able to not second guess it. So for me, it's a muscle. Like wearing wigs is a muscle. Like you learn to adapt to it. You learn to, if you do share about it, you learn to adjust to it. You become more comfortable in this new reality. The more comfortable in your new reality, the more free you are within yourself, the more a prisoner you don't feel within this dynamic. So I decided to not wear my beanie to the grocery store, specifically because I felt a resistance to myself. I could feel a pushback, like where I was like, I didn't want to go out in the shaved head for the mere fact that it was a shaved head state. But my reality is this is my reality. Going forward, this is not going to change. It hasn't. My female pattern hair loss situation dynamic has evolved over the years as to what I do to try to stay ahead of it and live with it. But what doesn't change is that I have female pattern baldness, and not just that, but also an autoimmune hair loss I got in 2022. So I have two types. So if my situation is unchanging, and I know that to be true, all I can do is to work on the circumstances around it to stay the most in control and not under the thumb of it. One of those things is not feeling like I have to, using that word have to, wear a wig. This is for me. This is not for everybody. This is very individual. So please don't think that it's wrong if you choose to wear a wig or you choose to wear a beanie if you never want to show your head. I'm just sharing in my dynamic because this will look different for everybody. The correct way is going to be whatever feels most liberating for you, whatever allows you to feel like you are not being owned by this dynamic. If you love wearing your wigs 24/7, basically, or ideally not sleeping in the wig, and if you are, then unless it's bonded, wearing something that's not your main driver, ideally that's a different topic. But for me, it means at any point in time being able to show up as I am and doing so because it's a choice. And this morning felt like it wasn't going to be a choice. It was going to be because I didn't want to do it. So I pushed myself. Kind of exposure therapy, I talked about that before. I pushed myself, and it wasn't like a big push, like it was like that much of a stretch. But the more, if I kept myself from continually going out in that state, that muscle would get weaker and weaker, and I would feel more withdrawn with that, or feel more embarrassed with that, or feel more uncomfortable with that, or feel all the things that I actually do not want to feel, because I don't want my hair loss to own me. I don't want my hair loss to have control of me. It had control of me for, many years, and I don't want to go back to that dynamic. It's an evolutionary process, and the word journey is very applicable here, but it's, for me, staying in front of doing the things that are necessary so that I don't ever find myself feeling like I am completely disempowered in this process. That included starting to wear wigs. That included cutting my hair short, 2012. That included, when the time came, making the decision to shave my head, which was very, very difficult. That included, choosing to wear beanies, when it worked, choosing to wear wigs when it worked, choosing to wear go out my bio hair when it worked. And in my life, that meant including everybody in my life within this process, because that would be the most liberating for me. I'm someone that has a tremendous amount of anxiety, and I just felt I would never be free. I could never feel free. And it's worth noting, none of this is something like I love. It's not like I love, no matter how evolved I am in this process, and 26 years into hair loss, and 13 years into wearing wigs, and everything that I've done and all the experience that I have, it doesn't change that sometimes you're just feeling suboptimal in this situation. Like, this isn't ideal. This sucks. I think that all those emotions and feelings are normal, and I'm pretty sure that I probably will always have them to some degree in my life going forward. But as a whole, as a general statement, hair loss is now more of like an inconvenience into maybe I want to have hair, but I don't feel like wearing a wig, so I go ahead and wear the wig because I want to have the hair. Or I really don't want something on my head, but it's cold, so I'm going to have to choose to wear a beanie, but I didn't really want to wear the beanie. Sometimes it's functional. So there are always concessions I have to make within this process, but they're not debilitating for me. They don't keep me stuck. They don't keep me from living my life. They don't keep me from doing the things that I need to do. But part of that, for sure, is pushing the boundaries on when I feel like I'm weak on something. So, for example, if I stop wearing wigs for a while, which I have done in the past, when you start getting back into it, like I took a break from it for a short period of time. There's a video I have on YouTube, which, is about the re-entry into wig wearing. And after you take a large break, it could feel like all of a sudden you're feeling the wig on your head again. It's not like as, second nature as it was before, and you adjust, in pretty short order, but it's still an adjustment. So I have to be willing to do the things that are not the most optimal to be able to live free of hair loss. Sometimes people ask me, how did you get over your hair loss? And the thing is I didn't actually get over my hair loss. I actually learned to live with it, adjust to it, make the decisions needed to not be living disempowered by it. But I didn't get over it. I'm not immune to seeing somebody that has like a glorious ponytail and thinking like, damn, that's not something I'll ever have again. I've made peace with it, but it could flash in my brain, and that's okay. It's okay to acknowledge that those things are real, things I once had and I won't have again. It doesn't bring me to my knees the way it did before, but those feelings do arise sometimes, and I think that's perfectly normal. And I don't think that any of us should be judging ourselves for the feelings that we are having. And depending on where you are, there's a whole array of feelings that could be associated with this. A lot of times one of those, which is, shame. When we talk about shame, it's like, we really have to think about what is it that we have to be shameful about. We didn't cause our hair loss. We didn't do anything to do this to ourselves. We didn't hurt anybody by having hair loss. The person that's hurting is us. And the things that we need to do and the decisions we need to make should be made for us and not for other people. That doesn't mean that you won't have a negative experience or an encounter or somebody won't make you feel bad. I definitely have heard stories about that. But at the end of the day, you should feel good about every single positive decision that you make in your life to move forward through this. In this process of hair loss, I feel like people feel like they're not making forward movement, or they thought they were further along than, they felt they were further along, then all of a sudden they feel like they're not that far along, and they have this regressed state of feelings that they're in. They don't want to wear their wig. Maybe they're resentful of their wig. Maybe they're upset that this thing is even in their house now, or that this has to be their reality if they want to have hair. When it comes to hair loss, I always see all the experiences that we do and every positive movement that we do in this process as kind of like, I haven't played a video game in a long time, but as I do recall from my childhood, when you could save the game, right? You're like running along and you're catching your coins, or you're doing whatever you're doing. Well, that's really dating me probably. But you're doing the stuff that you're doing, and you're getting to the next level. And getting to the next level for you could be exploring wigs, if you're wanting to do that. It could be if you're wearing wigs. It could be the thought process of, wearing it out in public if you haven't yet, or sharing it with a close friend if you haven't done that. It could be a number of things. I know there's no cure for female pattern baldness, and I've always felt that the sidetrack here, the ultimate cure is actually truly acceptance in this to find internal peace. But in that video game. You're running along, you're catching your coins, you're jumping over bricks, and then you level up, right? You get to the next level, and now you're in this new dungeon or whatever, running around grabbing coins. And each time you did that one thing for yourself, what was it that you did for yourself that day to level up? And it counted. It does not take away from it. If the next day you feel like crap, but you did something for yourself that day, you went and you looked up whatever it was. Maybe it was buying a wig. Maybe it was going to a wig store. Maybe it was telling a friend. Whatever it was for you, whatever it was, the next day, that feeling like crap does not negate the fact that you did the thing. You started the process of empowering yourself to do the things that you had within your control, to take control of this. So there's no backslides here. When you leveled up, the game is saved. And then the next day, it doesn't matter if you feel like you went down, you didn't go down, you're still in the new level, and maybe not the day, but when you're ready, you're gonna start running down the path, grabbing the coins, jumping up and down, jumping over bricks, collecting your tokens, and then you're gonna level up again. And you're gonna keep doing that. The game is saved. And there is no backslidesies in this process as long as you are actively working towards your own healing, your own version of healing within this. And for some, that just means complete internal acceptance of this dynamic, and it doesn't involve treatments, and it doesn't involve a wig, none of that. And maybe it doesn't involve telling anybody about it. The only thing that has to be involved in this process is that it's helping you to feel in alignment with who you were before this process began, to be at peace with it more, so that it's not owning your life, taking away from your life, taking away from your ability to socialize, taking away from time with your family, so that you're not a slave to your hair loss, every single day. We are leveling up. We're not doing backslides. You want to own your hair loss, in my view, not always easier to do at the initial stages of this, before it owns you, because it can own you big time, and it did own me for over a decade. And in my world, taking that power back began when I started to wear wigs. And that wasn't a perfect process, and it was an adjustment. You have to give yourself grace in that process. Healing within this is possible. I know, because I'm sitting here and I'm talking to you, and I wanted to tell you this because I know it doesn't feel like that when you're on day 1, and sometimes it doesn't feel like that on year 5. And I really wish that somebody would have told me that, or sat there and told me that you may not feel like that today. You may be on the floor, you may be crying, you may have just got out of the shower and pasted your hairs on the shower wall and started counting it out like an abacus, see how many strands there are, like I used to do, and just be stuck in the shower crying, and then continue it in the sink. You may be in that mode and just in pure shock. And I wish I had the words and somebody's words ahead of me, in this case 26 years ahead, to say that it didn't take 26 years, by the way. It did take over a decade for me, but possibility within this exists, healing within this exists. No, I didn't get over my hair loss. I learned to live with my hair loss. And that, in this process for me, is good enough, because this is never going to be a perfect situation. My hair is never going to grow back to where it was before in any meaningful way that I'll be able to use, that will make me feel good. So shaving my head is the better option at this point in time. And before that, it was a short haircut, and the wigs and everything that I needed to do. I think healing is, looks different for everybody. We all move through this at different speeds, and part of how we heal and part of how we process things is also how we came into this world, and how we were raised, and the environment that shaped us also contributes, in my opinion, to how we move through this process. And that's different for all of us, and what we can or cannot do, and what we're dealing with. More women than you think have found their path within this, and have found their ability to live their life on their terms with hair loss, and have a happy and fulfilling life. Yeah, life will always be life. We will always have our problems, but the hair loss is not the biggest defining factor of whatever, unhappiness is in their life presently. A lot of women have found a way to make this work, including myself.